All right. Got a little bit excited and started 30 seconds earlier, so I'm gonna let people join. Um, we've got a bunch. We got a bunch of questions this month, so I don't know if I'll be able to address all of them. We've got about like 20, 30 minutes tops. But yeah, if you have a question, don't hesitate to post it in the chat, and I'll be checking the chat every now and then to make sure I address the questions of people who managed to join live. And if you haven't already, you might want to hit subscribe because that will actually like notify you next time I do a live call, which is once a month. All right, so let's get started with a question I got about how you can find the email for when you've identified a music supervisor you want to work with. And then, are there other way to get emails, other than the IMDb Pro approach? So my answer to how can I find the email for certain music supervisors is very easy. Well, easy or not. Basically, the golden rule is try to be as creative in your prospecting and outreach campaigns, to use marketing terms. Try to be as creative as you are in the studio. So a few ideas when you've identified a music supervisor or someone you want to work with, because actually in the email I got, it turns out that the person they had identified wasn't a music supervisor but a fellow music composer. So actually much easier to reach out to than a music supervisor. But anyway, it applies to anyone you want to reach out to that you don't know personally. And actually, just doing a little bit of research, even if you know them or if they're referred to you, it makes sense. So, a few questions to ask yourself: do they have a blog? Are they active on Twitter? Can you connect with them on LinkedIn? Is there anyone connected with them that might be easier to reach? So, to give you an example, on big productions, very often there'll be a music department, and maybe the music supervisor is not, it's not very easy to reach out to them because they're bombarded with unsolicited music submissions. But it may be easier to reach out to a musician, a composer who worked on the project, and ask them how they got the gig and stuff like that. Not necessarily upfront, but just making those connections. Just basically trying to get in sideways instead of aiming for right away the number one person, the key decision maker. Of course, ultimately you want to get to that key decision maker, but it's just like in life, the regular world, the connections you make, it's kind of a friend. You make friends with someone, and then a friend out of a friend, and a friend and a friend and a friend. Anyway, it works the same. So you need to be patient as well. Also, before you send them any music, I would encourage you to ask yourself, why would they even consider your music? And some of the answers include someone they trust referred me. For example, another band that they've already worked with or like, or a music library that they enjoy working with. In the case of, a music supervisor, or even an indie filmmaker or podcaster or YouTuber. They've made it clear that they're actively looking for my style of music and are open to music submissions. Very important, some very clearly established that they are not open to music submissions. Don't waste your time on those people. Also, they might be familiar with your name because they might be interested in your music because they're familiar with your name, and you've interacted through informal channels like Twitter or through blog comments. Also, if you have an excellent track record and an impressive list of credits, you might get their attention, or simply they like you for some reason or other. That person likes you. But yeah, basically asking yourself how you can, what are different ways you can reach out to them, who you might know, what's an informal way of getting in touch with them before, and, why would they even want to work with you before actually reaching out to them and sending music that hasn't been solicited. That would be my advice to someone, trying to get in touch with these supervisors. Hopefully that makes sense for everyone. If anything is unclear, or if you disagree, actually, or you have another tip that's worked for you, don't hesitate to post it in the chat. And if you've got a question, let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just be going through the questions I got in advance. All right. I also had a question about a composer agreement. So it was a composer submitting music to a music library and reading the contract of that music library for like the composer agreement. Basically, the music library said, "Yeah, we'd love to represent your music, to host it on our platform. Can you sign this agreement?" And so the email I got was about the contract terms. It was saying that the music library would get 50% of publishing, and the network or production company would get 50%. So basically, the composer would get 0% of publishing, but they would get 100% on the artist side. So they'd get the 100% of the writer's share, and the library and the production company would split the publishing share. And so the question was, have you seen these types of percents with other libraries? And, what did you do? Also, so I'll focus on that question first. There were a bunch of other questions afterwards. So basically, that splitting the library that keeps 100% of publishing, and the composer who keeps 100% of writer's share, that's a pretty standard agreement. So it's nothing to be scared of. And the reason it's a pretty standard agreement is that basically, in this case, when the library places your track, they're essentially acting as your music publisher for this particular song, for that particular project. So if you were to sign with a music publisher, they'd keep 100% of publishing as well. So it's just that music libraries often act as your music publisher. So in that sense, it makes it's fine that they get 100% of publishing. And then the second question from Rick actually was, and it's a 3-year exclusive contract. Personally, I think it's too long. Then again, why not? So I agree with why not. 3 years is a bit long. It kind of depends on the size of your catalog, if you want to go exclusive or non-exclusive. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, because I received a question on that as well. All right. Another question I got is from a member of Reverb Nation, and he was saying, it seems I can only get ISRC codes if I tell them to digitally distribute my songs. Would the digitally distributed songs be in conflict of getting licensing opportunities for them? And the answer is no. By default, music distribution through Reverb Nation or DistroKid, or directly through Spotify. So music distribution and music licensing are not mutually exclusive. That's by default. Of course, if you sign over your music copyrights to someone else, then that person decides what you can and cannot do with your music, but otherwise you're free to distribute it and license it. So what does that actually mean? It means that most music distribution agreements will not contain a clause preventing you from licensing your music, and most music licensing agreements or most composer agreements with music libraries will not contain a clause where you're giving away your copyrights and you're not allowed to distribute the music. You might, if it's not unclear to you when you read the terms of the music distribution agreement or the music licensing agreement you sign, or the composer agreement with a music library, if anything is unclear to you, and you're not sure about a potential conflict, then I would encourage you to ask the question directly to the third party you're signing the contract with. But by default, music distribution and music licensing are not mutually exclusive. They're two very different things. And if you want to check out, I actually I started an FAQ page for music libraries on creativeandproductive.com. So if you type in FAQ music libraries in the search bar of the website, you'll find the FAQ post, and that'll clarify that difference for you. Is that clear for... Hey, Mike. If it's not clear for you guys live, just let me know. I'm assuming it's clear, but if I'm moving too fast, just let me know in the chat. If you have a question, let me know in the chat as well. Hey, Jude. Thanks for showing up. All right. I had this huge question from I can't remember her name. Sorry. So but it's a really cool question actually. I don't talk about this that often, but it was about my process for writing a song, like from the start, from the initial idea of a song to actually submitting it to licensing opportunities. And so the idea is, what's the process when you write a song? When do you start writing? Do you use templates? Do you try to sound like anyone? Do you follow a particular structure? All that stuff. So I actually wrote a post that's called "How to Be Insanely Productive in the Studio" that you might want to check out for the creative process that goes into detail. I'll tell you a little bit about it now, but if you want to go into more detail, and I'll include a link in the video description if you're interested. But basically, I write when I want to write. Well, I have a writing routine. It depends on right now I'm not in a writing period, but when I am, I have a writing routine where I commit to sitting down and opening my DAW and writing for 30 minutes every morning before going to work. So now I work on my own, but it's basically when I do that is I wake up. I wake up half an hour before and I commit for like a period of between a week and 12 weeks to opening my DAW and writing anything that comes to mind for half an hour. I put a timer. If I want to keep going when the timer goes off, I do. If I don't, so I get into a writing habit basically. I do use templates. So I have 5 different templates that I use. The templates that I use, very simple. So they have there's an arrangement structure and there's an instrumentation. There are like 5 or 6 instruments, except for the orchestral templates where there are a lot more instruments, and the plugins, like the default plugins are already there. So basically all I have to do is I open my template, whatever mood I'm in, so some of I have orchestral, I have happy tunes, I have electronic music, I have cinematic, and I have trailer. And so, and I have cinematic and trailer the same. I have pop. Anyway, so when I open the project, I want to, the template I want to work with, I save as, I create a new project, and I improvise for 30 minutes. The way I write is that I try to finish a song in 30 minutes, even if it's crap. So basically the phases I have is I usually do that for 1 or 2 weeks, just work on creating as many drafts as possible. And I can link to, actually, I did a bunch of YouTube videos for that, called them the morning sessions. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So no particular structure. I do that for 1 or 2 weeks. And then what I do after the 2 weeks, so I'm only allowed to work on, so every day it's a different project. And I don't listen to them. I just bounce the project when the timer goes off or when I quit the studio. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, I listen to all the tracks, all the drafts I created in 30 minutes or less, or sometimes a little bit more. And I listen to all those tracks and I decide which one I want to pursue, which one I don't want to pursue. And I put them in folders depending on whether I think they're close to done or far from done, or I'm just not interested in pursuing this track at the moment. So I do that at the end of the 2 weeks, and then I basically give myself 4 weeks to finish a maximum number of tracks. So to the question, how do you know when you're finished? Is I know because at the end of each studio session, I'll bounce the track and I won't listen to it then. I'll listen to it like a week or 2 later, and I listen to it, like I'll sit down and listen to it, and I'll take notes of what I can improve and what I can't improve. And after 4 or 5 or 6 sessions, I've noticed that I just can't improve it. So either I'm satisfied with the result or I'm not. And if I'm not, it goes into a folder where it's like, okay, I'll check it again later, maybe in 6 month time, maybe in a year. It just needs to rest. I'm not ready, either emotionally or technically I'm not good enough yet to make it better. How do I mix the track? How do I master it? I mix it. I use Logic Pro 10, and I master it using Ozone. Obviously at the end of the process, the mixing, I tend, when I'm working in the DAW, I tend to mix it as I go, which is maybe not the great thing, but anyway, that's my process. And then the process to create all the required audio files, stingers, metadata, all that, I do that at the very end. And again, I usually give myself a couple of weeks to handle all that kind of not admin, but like housekeeping stuff related to audio files. And then for all the admin stuff like copyright, PR registration, library submissions, follow-ups, tracking usage, all of that. So I don't register my work for copyright. That saves me a little bit of time. I register them with my PRO. And then I have, for library submissions, I have a big spreadsheet with a list of, over 100, close to 200 libraries. And I just, and now I've grayed some out because I don't like working with them. Or anyway, I have this big spreadsheet there's a tab with a lot of libraries and when what I submitted to them. And I have a catalog spreadsheet as well where I have my list of songs in different columns. And in each column, there's it's a library. And so I'll say, okay, I've submitted, this, I don't know if you can see this. So I've submitted this track to this library. And so I'll say submitted, accepted, refused, no answer. So that's how I do that. All right, that was a really long answer, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what my process looks like. But to simplify it, to summarize, I write first and I figure out the admin and the commercial opportunities later. There are different schools of thought on this. That's my personal view, because I consider that, a music career is hard enough. Like if my focus was on making lots of money fast, I would have kept my old job because I was making plenty of money and it was way easier than music, way less competitive. So I do music because I enjoy making music. So if I'm going to start writing music that I don't enjoy making, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for me. But that's just, my point of view. And yeah. And there are many, many different ways to do things. So find your way, basically. All right. So, okay, we've got lots of comments here. All right, Mike, in your experience, is there a better chance of licensing success doing it all alone, assuming someone can program and play all the instruments, or working with a band? I don't think there's a better chance either way. There are pros and cons to both. Obviously, when you're in a band, what's really cool is that it's several people. So when one of you is not very motivated, the other is or are, and someone can be really good at networking and the other one is really good at admin. So you can kind of, it's easier not to spread yourself too thin. On the other hand, you have to clear all the rights. You have to make sure everybody's on the same page. The split sheets are signed. It's more hassle in that sense. So yeah, I guess when you do it alone, the big advantage is like you count on yourself and you're in complete control of the input, the effort you put in. Whereas when you depend on others, there are more frustrations, but you're also stronger because, you've got people to lift you up when you're feeling a bit down. All right. Hey, Angelina. Okay, that's cool. I have to work in bulk and listen back. Yeah, it really changed the way I look at things. It was actually a tip from Mike Monday. I don't know if you know him. I really enjoy his stuff, so you might want to check him out. No affiliation whatsoever. I just took his course Start Now, Finish Fast 3 years ago, and was really, really good. Yeah, hideously perfectionist husband. I like that. Yeah, perfectionism is really tough. You may want to. I'll have the link in the video description. I have a my how to be insanely productive in the studio includes something about perfectionism and how to overcome that. But I actually found that listening in bulk and only listening back 2 weeks after you've done the draft and thinking of that first step as a draft was very very helpful to kind of put some distance um, between you and the creation and yeah, so I found it very helpful. Would love to have a template of your spreadsheets. They're actually available. I put them in. I'll try to find them. Uh, can't remember which blog post they're in, but you have them on the website. I think it's the post about keywords and metadata, if I'm not mistaken. So you might want to check that out, or maybe it's in the 7-day Kickstart challenge. Obviously I need to be better at linking, but yeah, I'll include something in the video description. All right, the spreadsheet of libraries, exactly. Yeah. How do you research libraries? Okay. Okay, so again, I'll include a link in the video description, but basically they're actually, let me pull up the post now, because yeah, it's called like the questions I ask myself when I research libraries, um, and of course I can't find it. All right, yeah, here it is. So yeah, some of the questions I ask myself, like, do I like their website? It just makes sense from my point of view that if I don't like their websites, they might not be very good at converting, at getting customers to license my tracks, because you need a good user experience. What does their catalog sound like? So when I first got started, I put my music on every music library, non-exclusive music library I could find. But some of them have music that sound really crap. And after a while, I thought, well, I probably don't want to be associated with them so much. Also, do they value my time, art, and craft, which is basically a way of saying, are they pricing my music way too low? For example, I stay away of music libraries um, that make the, where their customers only have to pay like a yearly subscription and can get unlimited licenses. I understand from the customer's point of view, it's a great deal, but from an artist's point of view and the composer's point of view, it's really like it's similar to Spotify, really. So I'm thinking, if licensing is going that way, and part of it is, I don't want to be involved in it with that, because it just brings the prices down, and yeah, I'm not ready. That price is not right for me. How much traffic does their website get? So that's actually something I started doing a couple of years ago, and it's just huge. And you've got this really cool Chrome extension like SimilarWeb. It's called SimilarWeb, and it's free. I would highly recommend you install it because that will give you an estimate of the monthly traffic that the library gets. And the idea being, if they get a high volume of monthly traffic, that means that, probably means that they are able to get a lot of customers listening to your music. It's not a foolproof method. There are plenty of libraries that are very successful and don't have a lot of traffic, or some music libraries that have a really good blog, so they have a lot of traffic, but they actually don't have that many customers. But I think it's still a pretty cool thing to do, to evaluate, is it worth your time? Because obviously when you submit music and you do all the metadata thing, it takes a lot of time and energy. So ranking libraries in terms of traffic makes sense. Also, do the artists on there enjoy working with them? So if it's at all possible, getting in touch with music composers that have their work there, and asking them to share their experience. I've got a pretty cool interview with Kelly Parter Cooper, who actually started working with Black Toast Music, which is an exclusive library. So in that case, he did due diligence. He did his due diligence, and in that case, it's even more important because it's an exclusive library. And one of the things that reassured him, that made him sign the contract, the composer agreement, is that the composers who were working with Black Toast Music were really happy with him. So I can link to that interview as well. It's 2 hour long, so maybe you won't, but it's really cool. Really great guy, and we get into his creative process as well. There's also a website called Music Library Report. It's behind a paywall, but it's a cool website. They usually have a good discount around Black Friday and Christmas time, so Black Friday is just around the corner. So you might want to check them out, where it's a forum where you can ask about music libraries and look, how they're reviewed. Nothing beats trying yourself, because stuff that works for some people won't work for you, but it's a good resource. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But the big question I ask myself is, before I sign a deal is, if this licensing company never placed any of my tracks, would I be cool with that? And that's like, if you're only going to ask yourself one question about the deal, that would be the one. Like, assume that the deal is not going to work out. And are you still okay signing it? And it's kind of the reason why I favor non-exclusive deal, although there are good arguments for exclusive deal as well. Does that answer your question, Michael? Or if you have a follow-up, do you have a specific list of what to say to cold contacts? To cold contacts, so when they're super, super cold, I just take an interest in them. I try to get in touch with them in the most informal way possible. So I avoid email. I try to find them on Twitter and just kind of start liking their stuff, or if they, I try to do that. Otherwise, like a cold outreach by email, I always make sure my headline is about them. My subject line, the object of the email. Never more than 4 or 5 sentences. And yeah, either sometimes I'm aggressive and I'll have a link to one of my tracks, but I'll say specifically in the email, like, I saw you use this song in this project and thought you'd really enjoy this particular track. I'm looking for licensing opportunities, but no worries if you can't get back to me. Basically, really short, really to the point, personalized. And usually I don't include music. It's more about touching base and telling them I really enjoyed their work. Again, music supervisors, I used to, try to get in touch with a lot of music supervisors. I don't anymore. It feels like a waste of time. Again, trying to go sideways and reaching out to people who are more accessible. Okay. Yeah, the split sheet hassle. Can you please go into your housekeeping part of the process, things, cues, submixes? There's really no process to that. Oh yeah, I have a checklist. So I have a checklist printed out. So for each track, once I finish my mix and master, I'll just, well, it depends actually. So yeah, I have my checklist. I bounce out my stems. I try to do small edits. Sometimes I have to remix because for example, if I have a song with vocals and I take out the vocals, I kind of need to, to adjust that a little bit sometimes. But yeah, there isn't really that big of a process. I just have my checklist with all the stuff I want to, having a 30-second cue, a 60-second cue, a 90-second cue. And I go through my checklist and I check it off. And again, there's I can link to it. There's a blog. I've got a blog post with all the audio files you need for music licensing, and that checklist is included in there. So, I'll try to remember to add everything in the video description. If I forget anything, don't hesitate to comment, or you can go directly to creativeandproductive.com and type in what you need, and hopefully it'll appear in the results. If you want to put stuff with libraries, can you put it on Spotify as well? Yeah, so Jude, that's what I was mentioning before with Reverb Nation. What applies to Reverb Nation is the same as what applies to Spotify. Spotify is a music distributor. Well, it's not a music distributor. It's a platform where your music is available for streaming. So it's available for private consumption. If someone in a bar, if a venue plays a Spotify playlist in the background in their bar, if a public venue does that, they're actually paying a license to a PRO like ASCAP or BMI, and then you get royalties. But so Spotify private use licensing, you're authorizing someone to use your track in their audio or audiovisual project, like a podcast or a video, an audiovisual project, so like a film. So completely different things. So Jude, you might want to check out the FAQ, the library FAQ on creativeandproductive.com. Again, I'll try to add the link. But if you're a complete newbie, it makes sense for you to go through that FAQ. And it's an FAQ. It's still in construction. So if you have any questions that are not in the FAQ, don't hesitate to comment on the post, and I'll keep updating it to make sure everyone has the info they need. All right, Priscilla, the answer is yes, except I have to go now, but some music libraries do not want your music to be, oh, no, sorry. I'm confused about putting my music on YouTube and submitting, yeah. So again, same thing. YouTube is a platform that makes your music available for private use, for private consumption. So you should be able to put them. It depends on what you mean by putting your music on YouTube. But yeah, if you mean the YouTube ID, the YouTube Content ID program, then you might not be able to, because some music libraries don't like working with songs that are in the YouTube ID content program. I think it's the right order. But if you just mean, uploading your track on YouTube with a nice video, it's still yours. You're not transferring the copyrights to anyone else. We've covered that a little bit earlier in the Q&A. So yeah, don't hesitate to rewatch if that was unclear. And if it's still not clear, let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to get back to you. All right, I do not want to do a video on the YouTube ID content program because I don't understand it fully. It changes all the time, and I don't want to piss YouTube off. But yeah, I know it would be a great idea, but it changes too often. So yeah. And actually, it's a topic in the how to choose the right music library in my blog post. I discussed the YouTube ID content I just mix up the order. All right, cool. All right, thanks a lot for joining live. Sorry, I have to rush the end a bit. I didn't go through all the questions, so I'll email you guys individually if I haven't covered your question today. And don't hesitate to get in touch through the website, creativeandproductive.com. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next live stream, you might want to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And have a great day, evening, morning, depending on where you're based. For me, it's I need to go and have dinner now. All right, bye.